Hello, I'm M.Wassouf, Director of Energiehaus and also Passive House Building Certifier. In these 15 minutes, I want to show you our project ShowPass. ShowPass is a dwelling for a family for 4 persons with 2 cats, but also it's a showroom. It's an open building for the citizens of Barcelona and the stakeholders to demonstrate the feasibility and the advantages of passive house design in the Mediterranean. You can see here a photo of the opening act of this showroom with some politicians of the city discussing the advantages of energy efficiency and passive house in the Mediterranean. In this image, you can see the closeness of the building to the Mediterranean Sea, about 200 meters from the sea. And on the right hand, we have the ground floor and the first floor of the building and the cross section. So it's a typical building from first half of the last century, a typical building of cities in the Mediterranean. Some photos of the building before the retrofit. It's a building which suffered a lack of maintenance during several decades. Also, typically inside rooms with very few natural illumination and some also hygienic problems in winter time. So in this slide, we can see the results of the PHPP calculation, typical also for our latitudes, energy demands, heating demand of more than 100 kilowatt hours per square meters and year, and cooling demand, which is clearly lower than the heating demand. And in this second slide, we have the results of the retrofitted building. So we have decreased up to more than 80% the heating demand, and also clearly the cooling demand is lower than before the renovation. In this graph, I have summarized the results of the buildings. This is heating and cooling, domestic hot water and electricity consumption, and totally we have a reduction. The blue bar is the existing building and the gray bar is the retrofitted building, so we have a reduction of about 80%. And also we have calculated an alternative, the variant following the actual Spanish building code, where we would have reached a reduction of 50%. So you can see the difference between a passive house retrofit standard and the actual building code. Some photos of the retrofit after the renovation. On the right hand, you can see the street facade. There we followed the existing aesthetic of the street with typically lime-based render with traditional sun protection elements, and therefore we had to install interior insulation in this kind. Meanwhile, on the left hand, the patio facade is a ventilated facade with exterior insulation. This is one of my favorite images of the projects, where you can get an idea about the challenges, about the logistical problems and challenges of such a building site, very narrow street, and in this case also we had electrical lines on the air, so we really have to be very careful not to touch them, and so it's quite intensive in the site control, of course, also regarding airtightness and other components for the energy efficiency. Now I'm going to enter a little bit more into the technical details. We have installed a compact unit, a certified passive house, certified compact unit in this technical room. You can see this is a unit which we are currently testing together with the Passive House Institute to know how it will, or how it is functioning in real conditions in the Mediterranean. So we have here the homologers who are registering temperature and also relative humidity. This is a floor plan of the ground floor. So you can see on the left side this storage room, which also serves as a technical room, and the ducts. We have two ducts. One duct which is giving the fresh air into the ground floor, and the second one which is giving the fresh air for the first floor, which you can see here in what I'm drawing now in red. Here once again the photo of the compact unit. This compact unit is giving us cooling, active heating, ventilation, and also recirculation. So we have on the right hand the thermal envelope. We have what you can see here. B is the cooling and heating coil. So we have an air-to-air heat pump. We have the recirculation here as a green line. We have, of course, the filters, which are the red bars you can see in this picture. And we have also the heat recovery of the ventilation unit, which is here with the C letter. I'm showing you the mean results of the certification, of the Passive House certification of this compact unit. For the cooling case, we have a cooling capacity with 35 degrees outside temperature, about 4 kilowatt hours of capacity. And on the lower side, I have stated the calculated cooling load after PHPP calculation. So we have a total need of about 2 kilowatt hours of cooling load. So you can see when you compare these two values that we have still quite an interesting margin between these two cases for future increasing of temperature, for example. On the heating side, we have for, let's say, typically 7 degrees outside temperature in Barcelona, we have about almost 5 kilowatt hours of heating capacity, and also the calculated capacity is lower. So we have also here some reserve for a cooler winter time. Real results in this graph. We have put here the first year electric consumption, the total consumption of the building. It's about 4,000 kilowatt hours. Actually, the second year we are expecting less energy consumption because we have we needed several months in the first year of living in this ShowPass to really optimize the functioning of the air-to-water heat pump, which is making domestic hot water, and also the design of the smart control system, which lasted a little bit more than we have expected. So hopefully we will decrease this value, and we are comparing it with an average Spanish dwelling typical total energy consumption for the Mediterranean. So you can see here a reduction of about 70%. Also, we've made an annuity calculation, so to know which are the total annual costs, and compared it. On the left hand, we have the realized retrofit, and we compared it with the renovation following the Spanish building code. So you can see end of it was a little bit not much more expensive, but a little bit more expensive due to better windows and also ventilation system, airtightness, etc. But we have, of course, less operational costs. So we have more or less the same for 20 years calculation, the same amount of costs. Of course, we recommend the Energiehaus solution because it has a higher value of the building, a higher comfort, and higher also level of health characteristics. So, moreover, also in case of future increase of energy costs, we would be more independent to these future probable increases of these costs. We have a lot of values now to analyze, about more than 1 year of monitoring. I have picked up one, let's say, almost typical day in summertime. Of course, the summer is the part of the year where we are looking with more detail. So this is the 27th of July of 2022. It was not so typically because of rain. We had rain in this day in the early morning between 6 and 8 o'clock. So you can see this with the orange exterior temperature. I wanted to see how natural cross ventilation in this early morning had affected the interior comfort. Actually, curiously, the building has quite very high thermal inertia. Of course, we have massive brick walls and also some concrete screed. So you can see that the interior temperature, which is the blue line, is oscillating between 27 and 26 degrees. Actually, 26 degrees for us is a very comfortable temperature in summertime in Barcelona, where we have typically more than 30 degrees outside, and 27 for us was the eco mode of the control system. So you can see the green lines is when the heat pump of the compact tuning unit has started. So we are learning, we learned how is the philosophy of this unit and how is it is working. Also, we have to discuss this with the technicians to see whether an alternative operating mode could be also interesting. And in this graph, it's the same day. You can see the overall airflow rate in the gray line. This is the sum of the exterior ventilation and the recirculation. So you can see that the unit moved up to even a little bit more than 600 square meters per hour for this building. And also on the lower graph, which is also interesting to see, the peak low temperatures. Meanwhile, the unit was cooling actively, so it worked till 8 degrees more or less. We didn't have any troubles about concerning humidity or condensation. Of course, insulated, ducted in this building. And last but not least, these two graphs to show you that we also certified ShowPass with Ecometro. Ecometro is a Spanish certificate for a CO2 neutral building. So we compensate the 50-year calculated CO2 emissions with compensating with CO2 certificates. What is interesting in this graph on the left side, you can see in red the emissions of CO2 50 years of the existing building, let's say without having done anything, and the now emitted, or let's say to emit to the future emissions of about 50 years. So we have a reduction about 90% of the emission of the CO2 of the building. And what is also interesting, that is that the main let's say motor for this reduction was the energy efficiency. So the energy efficiency. This is the CO2 emissions in the Europe in the operating phase. So you can see the great potential of energy efficiency to reach CO2 neutral buildings in this kind of climate. Of course, when we compare all the concepts for the some of the CO2 emissions, we have now with the improved Enefit building, we have about 50% of emissions due to the operational costs. Let's say repeating for 50 years, and we have also quite a high impact of the fabric we have used. So therefore, when you are dealing with such kind of CO2 neutral or almost neutral retrofitting, please also be careful about the materials you are using, prioritizing materials with low impact on the environment. So thank you very much for your passions, and hope to see you. Of course, the door is open. If you come to Spain, you have to visit also Barcelona and share with us this nice experience with nice Spanish red wine, of course, and cheese from Catalonia or from La Mancha, wherever. So thank you very much, and see you soon.